Hi.
Hello.
We're here. We're on Facebook Live. I know we've had a few meetings before this just to kind of chat about our topic today. But I think before we get into that, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. I'll let you go first.
Well, I'm Katie Cole. I'm a BCBA at Holly Ridge, which is an infant toddler program that serves Kitsap and Mason counties. I have some experience working through the lifespan. I don't know if we want to kind of go into a little bit of our experiences.
Sure, yeah.
So although I currently work with infant toddlers, I've worked in developmental preschool classrooms, and most recently, I worked at the University of Washington Employment Program, working with teenagers and adults in vocational settings, so like preparing for employment. On a personal level, I'm also a sibling of somebody with autism, so I'm just really excited to talk about this. I think the holidays and vacations and traveling are just really crucial parts of our quality of life. So this will be fun to talk about with you.
Me too. So my name's Jessica. I am a speech and language pathologist and also a feeding therapist. And I specialize really in the birth to 5 population, I'd say. I'm in a unique position today because I am actually here representing the Aubin Aphasia Speech and Language Center, which is an outpatient clinic on Bainbridge Island, and we serve across the lifespan, although most of my caseload tends to be pediatric and especially the younger children. But I also am employed by Holly Ridge Center, where I've spent the majority of my career working with just birth to 3. So Katie and myself, for all the listeners, we are co-workers at Holly Ridge as well, although I'm here representing Aubin today. And so I think both of us, most of our experience is definitely with younger children, although we've kind of dabbled in some of the older populations too. And like you, I'm so excited to be here today to talk about this topic. And the topic we have is enjoying the holidays, which I know is so subjective. We all have various things that we do for the holidays. There are many different holidays that we celebrate over this season, and it looks different for many people. And Katie, we've talked about this a little bit. I feel that it's especially different this year given the COVID pandemic and the varying levels of comfort I've seen from families on kind of resuming their typical holiday activities or celebrations. And I've heard some families who are, talking about travel this year and going and seeing family in other states, maybe having some larger or smaller group gatherings. But there's definitely families who are planning to spend more time at home with just members of their households. And I think those families are often looking for activities to do to keep them busy, especially when the kids are home for winter break. And so, when I think about all of these differences, I feel like it's really important for us in this conversation today to honor those differences and keep this, a safe space. And so some of the points we talk about might be really unique to COVID, but we also really want to address some of the questions that we get from families year after year. So we'll definitely be touching on some travel or preparing for some of those group gatherings. And I know we've got some activities to share too that are either, winter themed, maybe not themed for the holiday season at all, or activities that can be themed for the various holidays, whatever you celebrate at home. So let's jump in. I have been thinking a lot about what the holidays mean to me. Like what do I think of when I think of the holidays? And for me, it's, being around friends and family, maybe meeting new people. It's also all of the food, the lights, the decorations, the different music, and all of that is so exciting to me. I just love the novelty of it all each year. And And I love getting up and seeing that my house is decorated different. I like hearing the different music, eating different foods, and being in different environments too. And I do think about individuals who may not enjoy those types of things. Maybe they're more routine oriented. Also, individuals with different sensory needs too. And so everybody isn't going to perceive the holidays the way that I perceive them with all of that excitement. But I think that with many of the things that I enjoy comes that sort of disruption in routine that we've talked about a lot, that can be really overstimulating for some people too. And especially for the populations that we work with. And I know for you, primarily working with individuals on the autism spectrum.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I love this season. The things that I love, and just like you listed, the I celebrate Christmas, so we have a tree and lights and decorations. And I think for some individuals, seeing, the house change, even, the environment look a little bit different might set off some disruption in routine. And so I agree that the navigating the holiday breaks that are coming up, there's so much there, like with, whether that's the house looking a little bit different or schedules. But I think with the biggest thing is the difference in schedule. And so in routine in that sense. So we've talked about this too. I'm somebody who I really thrive when I have a routine. So I can relate to this idea of this fear that can come up when you have a 2-week vacation and your structure is suddenly removed. So rather than, waking up and going to school every day, you get to maybe you stay in your pajamas later, or there's not really anything that is encouraging you to get up and get dressed and get out the door. So I think something that is important for the families that I've worked with and the clients that I've had during these times is really like kind of bookending the day. So finding ways to start the day and end the day in a similar way. So whether that's, waking up and showering or taking a bath or getting dressed and having breakfast, even something as simple as like a morning routine that is able to kind of be translated over into a holiday break, I think can really add a little bit of structure to a day. And same with like evening routines, whether that's, having some screen time and then taking a bath and then getting dressed for bed, or having some kind of bookend to wind down for the night, and having that structure and that stability, I think can add a lot of comfort to some of the kids that we work with.
Yeah, and I'm thinking too, when let's say there's a family that is traveling, that's a huge change. Your whole environment has changed. So I'm curious, with the families you serve, do you recommend, like in those situations, say they're going to a completely different environment, if they're bookending their day with some of these familiar routines, kind of bringing some of those items along with them that help them establish those routines or continue those routines?
Yeah, I think yes, definitely. And for individuals that have more complex needs, I think this is like the holiday season is a great opportunity, but it's also a challenging opportunity because where families are needing to kind of problem solve and anticipate all that can go wrong and try to prevent these things that might cause disruptions in their child's kind of routine or with their happiness and well-being. So bring, something as simple as, and it's not simple because, you have to pack it, but whether that's a blanket or certain toys or, and I know we'll talk about this in a little bit, but a plate or a cup that they, enjoy using during meal times, some of these items that even if you're in a new environment can bring some stability and comfort because they're items that remind the child of home or that makes them feel comfortable.
Yeah, that is such a good point. I get that question a lot from families, just being a feeding therapist as well. I work with a lot of children who are picky eaters. They have really limited food preferences, and so there's this sort of anxiety that comes along with planning some of these larger holiday meals or gatherings, and parents are curious on how they can try and plan for that. And that's often what I'll recommend is, bring something that's familiar, whether it's that familiar plate, that cup, those utensils, or a favored snack or a favored dish that helps provide them with that sort of stability in that familiarity. And I mean, I guess kind of just approaching it as though, how can we disrupt their routine the least? What things can we do? And changing the environment, there's only so much you can do with that. A lot of us go to other people's houses for, Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner, for example. And another thing I want to say about that too is all of that anxiety that comes along with wondering, oh, is my child going to eat the foods that are offered? Are they going to have a meltdown around mealtime? Is this going to be overstimulating for them? My biggest piece of advice for families and entering those kinds of environments is to say, hey, you know what? You are there to enjoy that mealtime. You want your child to enjoy that mealtime as well. And it is absolutely okay to kind of let go of whatever goals you have set for their mealtime or their feeding, or the expectations you have and some of the strategies you're working on to help with that, and just enjoy your meal and allow them to enjoy it in whatever way that looks like for them at the time.
I think that is such a beautiful point because there can be so much anxiety surrounding like newness or like a new environment, new people, overstimulating environments. And what's challenging for a family, or potentially challenging, is the parents' needs of wanting to enjoy a meal and then also having to kind of anticipate the needs of their child. And so I think, yeah, exactly what you said of like letting go of certain goals or expectations for certain, holiday meals or gatherings, and really, the saying, like, pick your battles of what is most important. What is our goal here? Is the goal to, for Johnny to try some turkey, or is it for Johnny to sit at the table and be with family? I think, we're looping back around to the mealtime. And about, this doesn't, if somebody's a selective eater, I don't, Thanksgiving you can enjoy, or any kind of holiday. I think there's ways to enjoy a meal without actually having to eat what's being served. So whether that's, a snack that you bring from home, I think there's ways where you can have that familial time without putting a pressure or asking your child to try something new when there's already all this newness. So.
Yeah. And I think even having a favored food item there, but then also considering if the child's okay with it, adding a little bit of the meal to their plate or on a plate beside what they have that is familiar, so that they can, also be a part of the meal that's taking place, even if that means, hey, they're going to touch it really quick or stir it with their spoon, or dip something else in it. That's okay for them to just interact with that item or be okay with it sitting in front of them while they have that favored food. Yeah. And another thing too, I would say, just in planning for big holiday meals like that, if parents are comfortable involving whoever is hosting that meal in that planning, by, calling them up and asking, although you may be able to imagine, what kinds of foods are we going to have?
Mm-hmm.
What will be available? And also maybe what is that seating arrangement like? What are we doing? And if there are needs that you can anticipate that you feel comfortable kind of asking for, I think communicating with the host or others who will be there ahead of time will really help and will kind of ease that anxiety going in. And I think other people being aware of your goals, even if that's we're not putting a lot of pressure tonight. We want him to just sit and enjoy being at the table with us. If you can prepare people for that and prepare yourselves for that, I think it'll really go a long way and you'll feel more supported in it and less alone there at the mealtime thinking, oh, I'm here kind of working with my child with feeding alone.
And, to even further expand on that is because I love the idea of asking for help or connecting with whoever's home you might be going to, whether it's a family member or a friend, and you're in a new environment and you're anticipating, what your child's needs might be. I think even asking, is there a room where my child can take a break? Is there a room where, we can be, if it gets too overwhelming, where, we can just kind of have a self-soothing kind of activity or space to just unwind and to really kind of decompress. I think that's so reasonable to ask for those things. And bringing along, we've talked about bringing familiar items, but items that might help with the self-regulation if an environment is too overstimulating, whether that's like highly preferred items like an iPad where you can watch your favorite show, or even bubbles. Bubbles are a great activity. I love bubbles personally, but I also think that it's a great way, even if the child's the one blowing the bubbles, it helps you take a deep breath, right? There's so many great physiological things about blowing bubbles, but then also seeing these big bubbles, soap bubbles grow and popping them, I think it can help. Just it's a great regulating activity. And or music. There's so many things that if you're needing something to do that takes away from, the environment, or taking a break during mealtime, or taking a break during visiting. I think those are some things that can be brought to.
Yeah, those self-regulating kind of tools you mentioned, whether it's whatever it is that helps them soothe, like a blanket, or a particular toy or item, those are all great things, and more often than not, pretty easy things to take along with you, even when you're traveling. Because I'm thinking about, if you're traveling, let's say you're going on a plane, there's a lot more limitations there too for having a separate environment to go to, parting from that environment. And I think having those soothing items can be a huge benefit.
Yeah, I think the plane, that's a great segue into the actual what traveling looks like for children who have complex needs. Whether that's on the plane or in the car, but I think for the plane rides, it's so complex. But I spoke with a colleague earlier today, actually, who is an occupational therapist, and she was saying that like a lot of her clients bring weighted blankets onto airplanes, or if a child is receptive to earplugs, or if they enjoy like Chewies, which is a brand of, like a chew necklace where they can chew on it while on the plane to help prevent their ears popping at the, this elevation. So there's so many other things to, that go into flying. And it's a lot to think about, but I think there's some great resources there as well.
Yeah. And when you're talking about the chewy tubes or the necklaces too, the other aspect of flying, I don't know. I've had a couple of families mention this year. I don't know if you have, but talking about the mask wearing when traveling this year. I know that can be really difficult. And I know the age has gotten a little bit younger too now for I think the requirements for wearing a mask on a plane. And I think when we were talking at one point, you had some really good ideas of different types of masks or things to try.
Yeah, I had a family who sewed in a pacifier into the mask. And for this family, their child was about 2.5, and the pacifier was used to like self-regulate or self-soothe, usually at nighttime. But I just think it's an ingenious idea because it's a way to pair something that is probably pretty preferred or, really enjoyable or soothing with something that's new and could potentially be just overwhelming. Wearing a mask with all these sensory needs and limitations and diversities, it's so challenging. So I think it would be, if a child likes pacifiers, having a pacifier inside might be a great way to help, keep the mask on if that's needed.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea. I forgot that you had mentioned that one. That one's pretty amazing. Both times I was just so excited about it. Both times I heard it.
I know. It is ingenious. And I think, there's other masks too that have, that I know some SLPs use that have like clear plastic over the mouth, which might be less kind of intrusive than having cloth there. I don't know if do you know of any kind of masks or strategies?
Yeah. I haven't had a lot of luck with the masks that have a window on it, except for the ones that we have at the Aubin Aphasia clinic. And they're these disposable ones, I think called the communicator. And those ones have been the least likely to fog up for me. And that's also something to think about for individuals with hearing loss as well. If you're traveling with someone with hearing loss, having a mask that has a window so they can see your mouth and lip read, that may be really beneficial for them too. So there are other populations where that could be really helpful. Yeah.
Right. And I know sometimes for some of our little ones, I know of a family who has asked for a note to give to the doctor to be exempt from mask wearing on a plane, especially if it's just not feasible, if somebody has like really great sensory needs. So I think that's another option too that could be explored for some families who are traveling and have anxiety about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are all great ideas. I know we were also going to talk about different activities around the holidays.
Mhm.
And I'm really excited about this part. I have some winter activities that I've gotten together now that we're coming upon that season. And so I would love to share some of those today. And I think what's great about some of the activities we've brainstormed for this is that these are all activities that, you could go and purchase items for it.
Mhm.
But I think that there are lots of ways that you can get the same sort of activity prepared with things that you have around the house too. So I don't think it'll take too much in the way of materials. Let me see here. So you heard this, I'm big on sensory bins.
I cannot wait to see the infamous.
I have so many of them. But I've used these bins because it's what I have at home. So this is just I think I got this from Target, a clear blue bin. It's pretty shallow and it has a lid. It's ideal for some of the children that we work with if the lids kind of clasp shut, because then they have to request to open it. Mm-hmm. And they can't just kind of open it themselves. It's just an opportunity for them to communicate a need and work on requesting using a word or a sign, whatever it might be. But I don't have one with a clasp. So I just use the ones that I have at home. And in this one I don't want to tip it over, but I have rice, just white rice, just to kind of emulate snow. And this one is more Christmas themed, but I'll show you some of the things I got. Some of these things I had around the house. And then the majority of them I actually got from the dollar store. the dollar store has great things, great seasonal items and small things that are perfect for sensory bins. So I have a couple little trees in this one to talk about the trees, and I have some bows, just random bows that we had at home, little ones. And at the dollar store, they have little plastic ornaments and some Santa boots. So
Oh,
there are some great things to talk about. And I also tend to utilize items that I just have in my kitchen. So I have a little tablespoon to use as a scooper and a little funnel, so that you can work on some of those fine motor skills too. But sensory bins are great for those children that have more complex sensory needs. Maybe they seek these types of sensations, or maybe you're working on getting them to explore other types of sensations. There are some children that, maybe don't like things stuck to their hands quite as much. And so you can introduce them to some things like that for some sensory play. And it's just great for vocabulary. And of course, the items in there could be swapped out for whatever holidays you celebrate. I have a Thanksgiving one that has some turkeys, and instead of the rice, it's dried corn and beans. And we have some fall themed items in there. But another activity I really enjoy around wintertime, especially if you're staying indoors, is having a fake snowball fight. So I have a collection of, little white pom-poms from a craft store that we use. They're nice and soft. So it should be a gentle snowball fight. But I could also see if someone, like if you had white tissue paper, you could crumple that up into a ball, and that's soft and gentle enough. But that is so fun for children that, first of all, that could be a sensory activity, nice soft puff ball. But it's also great for some of that rough and tumble, gross motor type of play, and getting your child to kind of engage with you if that's the type of play that they're really motivated by. So that one's really fun. And the last one that I'm just super excited about this year is a couple of Play-Doh activities. And I think we're going to share a Play-Doh recipe. It's quite easy to make at home if you haven't made it before, and you can make it whatever color you want. I made a batch of Play-Doh yesterday, and I kept it white because I'm going to be using it as snow and to make some snowmen. And this is an activity that I can't take credit for, actually. One of our coworkers, Nicole, she mentioned it to me, and it is so sweet. So in this activity, you would roll the 3 balls to make your snowman. And I found things around my house. I have little buttons or like black beans. I also have googly eyes that you could use for eyes. And you can put the body parts to talk about body parts. I have a little carrot nose that I made. And you can use those black beans for buttons or eyes or a mouth. And then I went outside and grabbed a couple of little twigs for those arms.
That's precious.
Yeah. And then use some extra Christmas ribbon to make a little mock scarf. And so I think that would be a great activity to do, to talk about the body parts on, off. And talk about snow, especially if we don't have snow yet, or maybe we don't get it this year. These are some ways to kind of incorporate that vocabulary too. And I also have different, Play-Doh tools often come with like the little rollers, but you can grab things out of your kitchen too if you have something to roll the Play-Doh out. And I have some Christmas themed cookie cutters. So it's an activity where we pretend to make cookies with the Play-Doh. But you can also get, like Hanukkah themed cookie cutters. I know they have some that like sets where there's a dreidel and a menorah, maybe a Star of David, and you can make those cookies too. So you can theme it for whatever holiday you're celebrating. But I really love these activities, the sensory activities this time of year.
Yeah, I agree. I think I love all of those. I'm trying to think. I love the pom-poms. I never thought of that. And I love that idea for so many reasons, because when we're thinking of some children who maybe are still learning to sit and attend to activities. So if maybe like making a snowman is a little like too involved,
Yeah.
having the pom-poms is great because there's so much you can do there. Like you can take something around the house like a sheet and use it as a parachute and put some pom-poms on there and make it, and again with the vocabulary, you know, labeling up, 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 and then shaking it, the balls could fly off and then having it go down. There's so many great kind of social engagement activities that don't take a lot of effort or don't necessarily, you know, require you to go out and buy, you know, anything. So I loved all of those. Those were so great.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely activities where you can kind of adjust them or manipulate them in ways that are motivating for your child. And those highly motivating activities, sometimes the sensory activities, are those activities that they'll spend more time engaged in and focused on. So to kind of work on that attention, maintaining attention to an activity too.
Right. Yeah, I think, you know, when you're thinking about routines, which we talked about at the start of our discussion, having a goal of just one, you know, just one activity a day of, you know, whether that is making Play-Doh or, you know, having a snowball fight, or there's so many things that can be done too. And I love like going out and looking at lights. There's so many things, you know, having a car ride, going for a walk, just like more big gross motor activities that can help with energy, whether that's somebody who maybe has a lot of energy to kind of help decrease some of those exciting kind of feelings, or going for a drive. The Bluedell Reserve on
Lodell, yeah.
Lodell,
Yeah.
on Bainbridge Island. I love going there and looking at the lights this time of year. There's boat parades and like with the Bremerton Yacht Club and different marinas around Kitsap County. So looking at lights or looking at boats with lights.
There are some neighborhoods that are more known for all the lights that they have this time of year that everyone drives through to look at too.
I think in Bremerton there's like Candy Cane Lane, and I'm trying to remember the actual name of this street, but it's off of, yeah. And I love doing that. It's just a fun activity that's free, and you can be in the warmth of a car, and yeah, it's just a more accessible way to kind of get out of the house without necessarily having to get out of the house and go do something.
Yeah, and that reminds me of, I think, I'm not sure if it's set in stone right now, but Holly Ridge is, I think, planning on doing their virtual Santa event this year too. So if visiting Santa is something you really like to do as a family, but kind of being around all those people this year is something you're not quite comfortable with, there, I think, should be an option to do that virtually through Holly Ridge. Yeah.
I think and this will probably be linked into a resource list as well, but the Holly Ridge website has access to a lot of seasonal songs and other activities that can be done at home, which is really great too.
Yeah, I think we'll provide a link for that after we're done here. And it's our education page. It's for at-home education. And they have so many great activities posted on there. And, you know, if you just go and search on Google to find printables or random crafts that you can do, there's so much out there that you can find, even if it's a coloring page, that can be really fun to do at home.
Yeah, one of the things I've made before in the past too are like puddins. So like having a yogurt container and do you have one?
I have one. A yogurt container.
Yes, and it's another great opportunity to
Yes.
just like request and be able to engage, and something that helps with, you know, just like sitting and attending and having an activity to look at and do, and it's nice.
Yeah.
So
Well, for all the listeners, this is my yogurt container. And what she's talking about is just using some of these food containers once they're empty, cleaning them out. And, for me, I found some random pieces of toys where maybe I didn't have the rest of the toy anymore. So I actually have all these different coins. And because they're all, the same size and shape for this particular in and out, I just have that one shape cut out of the top. And so for this activity, we can just go ahead and work on putting those items into the container and then opening it up and pouring them out again. But you can also do it where you have a couple different size or shape objects too, where you can sort of sort them between the 2 or 3 compartments.
I think we've used cotton balls too. Other things that you can kind of easily find around the house, or popsicle sticks. All of those make great kind of actual items that you can put into those containers. That's awesome.
And then I think one of the other things I wanted to mention, this may be the last thing I wanted to mention, was something we do a lot at Holly Ridge is we'll have kind of these manila folders that we'll use to create puzzles. So we laminate them and we put pieces of Velcro on them, and we have items that we print out. Maybe they're shapes or colors or different animals. There's always a sort of theme to it. And we match those shapes and colors. So I think we'll try and put a couple of examples of what that looks like on our resource list. But those are really fun and could be really easy to do rather than going out and buying new puzzles. But to create something more novel with different vocabulary, that could be really good.
And it really can span across like developmental level too, of just matching color, like a orange circle with an orange circle, or sometimes they'll have like little cups with like a dot with a corresponding number. So we match 1 or we match 2, and so you can work on just a lot of different skills with the kind of matching folder games. I love those, and they're great because they can be carried easily. You can transport with them anywhere. You can easily put them in your bag to go on a plane, or
Great point. Yeah, I think that's all I have. Katie, do you have anything else you wanted to mention?
There's always so much
I know.
There's so much we can talk about, but I think opening up to questions, any questions, is a great segue.
Yeah, let's see. I think we'll hold on a couple minutes, see if there's any questions that come in, and well, while we wait, Katie, this was really fun. It flew by.
It did. It's incredible. I feel like we could talk for 30 minutes more. Like there's so many different resources. And so I think, after this, we can just gather up some information and share with others too.
Yeah, and supplement everything that we have talked about today. Well, I don't see any questions coming in at this point, so I think we'll just wrap it up and just say thank you to everyone who has listened today. And we hope you get a lot of use out of the resources we provide, and we hope you all have a great holiday season.
Yes, take good care.
Bye.
Bye.